Alright, time for the grand reveal and see if my stream actually works! Maybe! I see my face, I see the front page of DnD Beyond. Sweet, we actually are live, more or less. Cool! Hi! So, I'm going to be going away for a couple weeks, but I figured in the meantime we could do something cool before I left. We're going to be holding our first ever character workshop here on Lady Gamers Night to kind of showcase some of the tools that I use on the background and also get people started on, maybe you have an idea for a character, don't know how to build them, want to do it online but you're not sure how, or just need help coming up with some backstory or some interesting hooks that can kind of build a universe around your character. So, we're going to start off with some just quick tips of things that I use every week to help manage things. So, we are going to take a look at D&D Beyond first. So this is what I use when I'm doing my dungeon mastering. I have the Legendary Bundle as well as the Master License Subscription? That's what I'm looking for. Which allows me to share my campaign with the players so they can kind of see each other's characters and all that kind of stuff. So, things that we are going to use to make our character today. We're going to be using the Player's Handbook. And honestly, that's it. I have a bunch of source material from other expansions, like the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide, Vola's Guide to Monsters, Xanathar's Guide to Everything, all have different source material that you can use for your characters. And you are welcome to kind of take a peek as I go through. And it sounds like Jenna's joined us. Hi, Jenna!
Hello!
Hello! So, first things first, let's take a look at what we'll actually need to do when we're building a character. So, Player's Handbook has actually everything listed out step by step for what you'll need. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to select a name and a race, then select what kind of class we're going to play. We're going to pick our ability scores, and there's different ways you can do this depending on what your Game Master would like to use. And then we're going to come up with some features about our character that make them interesting and more than just numbers on a sheet, and actually transform them into something that is part of the universe, something that you can use in storytelling, and something that has depth and a kind of a richness to it. So we'll start there. This stream will assume that you know what some of the basics are for each class. I'm going to run through some of them real quick just so you can kind of get an idea if you've never played or haven't watched the stream before. So your races, you've got your traditional fantasy races like dwarves, elves, humans, gnomes, half-orcs, and then there's also some more exotic races that are not necessarily specific to D&D, but are definitely kind of a staple of. So we've got Dragonborn, which are long descendants of dragons and other species that are humanoid and smaller in size. And then we've got Tieflings, who are demons that have populated with other species to become more humanoid and less demonic over time. Both of which have some specific... hold on. Inch down computer audio a bit, and then mic up. How do I do this? I've never streamed before. Settings. Audio. No, that's not it. Mandy's helping me from the beyond. Or I can just move my mic closer to my face. That's also an option. Oh, hey, that's where that is. Yes, okay, let's bump the desktop audio down. There we go. And speakers up as high as it goes. Or the mic, so hopefully the movement made it sound a little bit better. And we're going to keep on rolling. So, a little bit about those races. Your classes are features about what your character can do. So if your race is about, your history, your genetics, your special abilities as far as your innate powers and things like that, your classes are your profession, things that you have studied for, special powers and abilities that you gain by, for some, years of dedication, or in some cases, raw, unabashed talent that kind of drives your powers. So for melee classes that like to get up and hit stuff, Barbarian is great for doing damage while also still being kind of tanky. You've also got fighters who are a bit more refined, rely a lot on armor, that can do easily, as much damage or be a better tank depending on how you want to build them out. Each class does have subclasses that make them better at one thing or another. Monks are very tanky, paladins are also very tanky while still doing a lot of damage, and clerics are kind of your battle priests that are right up in front of the action, smashing things with their big old mace while still casting healing on their allies. For those who prefer, and rogues of course are great at stabbing up front, hiding behind their targets and kind of using deception to gain the upper hand. For people that like to kind of stand back a little bit, maybe like to use spells or be a little bit more flashy, by default, Ranger, great with bows and arrows. They do have a subclass that allows them to get up close and personal with 2 swords, which is kind of cool. And then we've got your bards, which are great support characters. They can manipulate the battlefield by controlling their enemies. You've got a warlock and wizard, both of which are powerful spellcasters, and a sorcerer, which uses raw talent and charisma to basically demolish their foes using spells. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into actually making a character on D&D Beyond. And D&D Beyond makes it crazy easy to do. They have a place for you to save all of your other characters, or you can make your own. So, D&D Beyond by default, and this does not require a subscription or anything, you just need to log in with Twitch, which is super awesome, has 3 different builds. There's Standard, which is your standard character creation. That's what we're going to use today. There's the quick build feature, which is I just need something right here, right now, and just randomize it and give me something fun. I'll pick some specifics, and it will basically give me a character. Or randomize, which is you can create a bunch of different features of your character, so what level, what race, what class you want to be, and then hit a button and it randomizes your stats, your feats, everything else. So for today, we're going to use the standard character creation. We're not going to use the help text, because I know what I'm doing, kind of. I like to pretend like I do. And we're going to go ahead and get started. So, first things first, is we want to pick a name. Names can be dependent on what race you feel like playing. Maybe they're driven by where you're from. So for example, if we were to make a gnome, their names are often they have many names usually, about half a dozen. Your clan will give you a name, and then you'll get various nicknames from just about everybody else over time. So you might have your first name being Kellen, and your clan name being of Garrick, and then your nickname might be something that you've done that was a big accomplishment, maybe an instrument that you play if you're a bard, maybe it's your favorite enemy if you're a ranger, a bunch of different things you can put in there. So for today, we're going to make, let's see, we'll use the fantasy name generator. I'll just pick one at random. Fantasy names. Let's do a half-elf today. Those are one of the most common creatures that you'll find in D&D lore. I like Wistriel, Athana. That sounds cool. We'll do that one. Mix and match to your heart's content. And then we can select what source material we want to use. So I'm not going to use any homebrew content today, but maybe I'll make a Blood Hunter, which is part of the Critical Role set. We'll decide that once we get to it. And I like playtest content. This is their Unearthed Arcana. These are class features that Wizards of the Coast is actually testing out. They're not official story content yet, but if they're successful, they might get some tweaks, some refining, and will actually end up in future source material. For example, there were playtest content that was later baked into Xanathar's Guide to Everything that you could then use permanently once they'd been refined a little bit. So we're going to move on. We're going to choose a race, and because I have a bunch of content, you can see that I've got a bunch of different choices that I can make. If I wanted to trim that down, you can go ahead and use the filters here to do so. We're just going to use the basic player's handbook today, so let's go ahead and we're going to make a half-elf. So one of the things about choosing your race is you do get racial traits. So for example, half-elves get bonuses to charisma because they're usually very fair-featured and kind of beautiful by their backgrounds. And then they can also, because they're human, have the flexibility that humans get where they get bonuses to certain skills. In the world of D&D, humans are one of the shortest lived races. Therefore, their ambition and their drive usually gives them an advantage in their skills, as to where some of the older races may have other things that they grow into. Your half-elves also have dark vision, so they can see in the dark, Fey ancestry, so they're harder to trick using magic, and skill versatility. And then, of course, if you're not sure about your class, or your race, you can pick from different stuff. So you can come and see, here's all the stuff about the half-elf race. And one of the things that's nice about D&D these days is they actually have something that is called the basic rule set, or standard rules. This is available for free, and basically what you need as a player to get started playing D&D. So if you don't have a player's handbook, you can follow along in the SRD. You can create your character, and you can generate them and use them in your next home game. Alright, so we're going to go back down to our half-elf. There's some quick hit information about them here. So for example, what kind of age are they? Because a half-elf is a human and elf mix, they tend to reach adulthood around the same time as humans. However, they exceed their lifespan at about 180 years or more. So we're going to go ahead and make this character. So Wizdrael is going to be a half-elf, and this is where we can kind of start to give our character an advantage depending on what kind of class we want to make. So I see we got a few people in chat. Do we have any votes for what kind of class we want to make today? And this is where I wait because the delay on Twitch. Paladin? We can do a paladin. So let's actually take a look at paladin first before we make any decisions on what we want to do with our stats. So we're going to go back to the player's handbook, and let's take a look at our paladin sheet. So the character description will tell you kind of some brief outlines of what these different characters are, what kind of stories might be part of their lineage, or what kind of things they might do in combat. So paladins are very true to their deity and to their oath. So they kind of take up a calling that is beyond, bigger than them, and they will work to defend the people around them. However, depending on what deity you serve and what your oath is, you may be drawn to more profane endeavors where you start slaying, millions in name of your deity. So there's good and bad paladins, depending on how you want to go. So, when we're looking at the quick build suggestion here, it recommends that strength should be our highest ability score, followed by charisma, and then they recommend choosing the noble background. We'll get more to backgrounds later in character creation. So, with that in mind, we have the ability to increase 2 stats here. I'm going to increase strength, and then I'm also going to increase constitution, because we already get that +2 bonus to charisma, so we don't need to get any extra there. If we want, we can do a bard after this one, because we'll have quite a few different options to go through. Might be good to get just one, or more than one. So, skill versatility gives you proficiency in 2 skills of your choice. So as an adventurer, there are some things that are super helpful, especially if it's an ability that you're not necessarily great at. You can kind of use this to pad your stats a little bit. This is the part where I kind of like to start thinking less about what is my character going to be min-maxed out of. In other words, giving them the best stats because they're going to be super strong. Some of the best characters in Dungeons & Dragons are flawed. They're not perfect, just like regular people. You can really tie in your skills to their backgrounds and what they came from. So let's say that our paladin is a bit more of the, let's see, say a little bit more erudite, a little bit smarter than the average person, and they are going to value knowledge. So we'll pick a deity that represents that. Some things that can make your character seem smarter when making certain checks are maybe things like Arcana, knowing a lot about magic, Investigation, being really good at finding out information about people, or perhaps History or Religion, where your character has the ability to recall things that they may have heard, whether it has to do with historical background or maybe it has to do with religious deities, practices, rituals, things like that. So let's go ahead and start with, we'll do History and Religion. And we're also going to pick an extra language. So Common is the default language in the D&D verse, no matter what setting you're using, if it's Faerun or Forgotten Realms or anything like that. Elvish, because that's your ancestry, and then we can pick one more. So if I am a lover of knowledge, Dwarvish is the second most common language in Dungeons & Dragons, so we'll go ahead and pick Dwarvish, and we'll move on. And this is where we get to select our class. We've already decided that we're going to go ahead and make a paladin, so we're going to go ahead and select on this. It tells us a little bit about the class. So first things first is your hit die. Hit die determines how much health your character has. The higher the hit die, the more health you can get every single level. For D&D, since we're going to be building a paladin, we're going to be, pretty tanky, have a decent amount of health. It also tells you what abilities are best for you, and then what saves you get by default. So your character class can also give you some strengths based off of what you're good at. As a paladin, we're also going to be proficient with a bunch of weapons and armor, because you got to be plated up and hard to hit. And then we'll also get to select 2 skills from Athletics, Insight, Intimidation, Medicine, Persuasion, and Religion. Since we already have Religion, if we select it again, it becomes a proficiency bonus where it's Expertise. You get way more to add. And then you can see what some of the core class abilities are for your selection. So we're going to go ahead and add this class and pick our proficiencies. So we're going to say pretty insightful, good at reading people and divining their intent, and perhaps we're also pretty athletic, nice and strong, good for protecting people. So we're going to start at level 1. We're going to make that character, and then we'll also show what leveling up looks like a couple times. So you can see at level 1 we're going to have Divine Sense, where we can detect things like strong evils and powerful good. And these are certain features that are unique to your class, so that might be something beneficial that you bring to the party. Depending on how you build your party out and what y'all would like to do, you may work with other people in your group to decide who's going to play what. And that can actually also help building character backstory, as far as how do your 2 characters know each other. Did they grow up together? Did they maybe attend a college or a military training program together? Maybe an academy of some kind if they're for wizardry, things like that. Alright, so now we're down to score generation. There's 3 different methods that your game master may use. Personal preference, I like dice rolling, however you tend to want to do it with your players, so that you can make sure that 1, they're not crazy OP and they're not cheating, and 2, to make sure that, as a DM, I like to make sure that my characters feel like heroes. So if you get a series of low rolls, I might make a determination to say you can re-roll certain sections, because no character who's maybe a huge hero should have all stats below 10, for example. So that's a dice roll, which on here would be manual. Standard array gives you a standard 8 to 15 where you can actually say, I want to put, you know, my dexterity at an 8. I want to be really slow. Or you can do something called point by. Point by starts with your basics and then your modifiers, and you can actually have 27 points where you can distribute them evenly. This allows you more flexibility in custom character creation, and still is within bounds of fairness. So we're going to go ahead and use this today. Now, charisma and strength being my two biggest. I've got a 9 in strength off of that. And then I've got a +2 to charisma already, so we're sitting at 10. So let's dump 15 points into strength. And we'll put 13 points into charisma, which gives us 15 and 16 respectively. Now, as a intelligence-based character where we want to be super smart, we do want to have pretty decent stats here. Currently we're sitting at 8. I think that's a little low. Let's dump 5 points in there. And then we've got wisdom, dexterity, and constitution. So if constitution keeps me alive and keeps my party alive by extension, I should probably have some pretty decent score there. So we'll be on the high end of a +2 modifier there. And then we can round out our points. And we've got dex or wisdom. I feel like dexterity is more important, so we'll do that, and I'm actually going to leave my wisdom score pretty low. This character is more intelligent than wise, so they're good at being analytical. However, maybe the more common sense things don't necessarily catch on right away. Kind of like me. Alright, and now we've got our background options. So this is a place where you can check out all sorts of things you can do about your character and where they're from. Let's pick one at random. So this would be a knightly order. You would get some bonuses and benefits based off of that background, and there's tons of them. Let's see. So acolytes are good for clerics or druids, anyone that kind of spends any time worshiping a specific deity. Anyone that's religious or of background kind of thing. So we're going to go ahead and let's go with that. You know, you spent your life in service of a temple. We're going to say as a character who's interested in intelligence, maybe knowledge and wisdom, we'll go with Ayun as our patron. And for our proficiencies, say I'll have a good background in Arcana as well as religion and investigation. We get some additional languages while working with all of those groups. So we'll say Draconic, because talking to dragons is cool. And I always like characters that can swear in Orc, because that sounds fun. So one more thing that you get from your background here is you usually get a feature of some kind, and these vary from background to background. As an acolyte, you command the respect of those who share your faith, which means you and your adventuring companions can expect to receive free healing and care at any temple, shrine, or other established presence of your faith. So for example, if I have a party that's retreated to a major city where there is a temple of Ayun, and we want to get some free healing, rest up, get repaired, they would take us in exchange for the service that I've already provided to that deity. Suggested characteristics are also a fun way to build out your backstory. This is just one example of something that I'll be going over in a little bit when we talk more about character development and story design. But if you want some examples of personality traits, things that you're good at, maybe relationships that you have or things that are important to you, you can roll on these tables with a D8. So for example, let's go ahead and say, I quote or misquote sacred texts and proverbs in almost every situation. That seems like a lot of memorization on my part, but could be a really fun RP hook. Nothing can shake my optimistic attitude. That's very similar to me. It'd be very easy to play. Almost too easy. I do like being fancy, but I think I'm going to misquote sacred text pretty often because I think that sounds fun. Ideals. So these are things that are important to your character, and these don't necessarily have to come from this table. If part of your background is that you have an ideal that you strongly resonate with, go ahead and use it. Totally fine. I'm going to go ahead and roll a d6 and pick one from this table. 4. Power. I hope to one day rise to the top of my faith's religious hierarchy. Yeah, I can work with that. Works well for someone who constantly misquotes scripture. And our bonds. So bonds are things that are kind of like your relationships, or not just relationships with other characters, but relationships with deities, or your community, things like that. I would roll one more time, and 1. I would die to recover an ancient relic of my faith that was lost long ago. So this could provide an interesting story hook for your dungeon master as well. If this is something that's on your character sheet, it may not necessarily be something you ever discuss with your DM, but perhaps they write an entire story arc where a certain relic of your deity has become available. And if you really lean into that bond, there are certain things that you may be rewarded with in the long term. Hopefully you don't die recovering that ancient relic, but you would if you had to. And flaws, again, harkening back to previous conversation, are really good for character development. Gives you places to grow, but it also gives other characters something to kind of play off of, so you can build your character a bit more based off of what you kind of roll into. So we're going to click random and see what it gives me. 5. I am suspicious of strangers and expect the worst of them. So when meeting new characters, I might play that up as a little standoffish. Maybe I don't give them a lot of respect off the bat, or maybe even assume the worst of them, which could be problematic depending if I'm the charismatic character who's responsible for talking to others. So under character details, we start to get into the specifics about what others in the world would see of your character. So we've talked about the pen and paper stuff. This is where you really start to build on what makes your character unique, what gives your character life, so to speak. This is who do you want to be at the table when you start doing your presentation of, this is my character, and this is my background, and this is how I interact with everyone around me, and I already know this person, and they know me, and this is what they part of the organized structure, almost like a militaristic religion of hierarchy. So we're going to go with a lawful good as someone who's trying to reach the top tier of their structure with Ayun. Probably would not do well to live on the shady side of things. So lawful good creatures can be counted on to do the right thing as expected by society. Gold dragons, paladins, and most dwarves are also lawful good. So our faith, we're going to worship Ayun, the mistress of knowledge, and your lifestyle. So your lifestyle is how you live when you're not adventuring, and how much does it cost you? Depending on what kind of adventurer you are, or what your character likes to live in, you may have certain comforts that you wouldn't be comfortable living without. As such, my character is comfortable and wants to be one of the upper cresties. We'll say they live comfortably, which means they can afford nicer clothing and easily maintain their equipment. Lives in a small cottage in a middle-class neighborhood, or in a private room in a fine inn. You associate with merchants, skilled trade people, and military officers. This information here can kind of help give you additional background stories. So if you are, for example, someone that lives in a poorer background, you might be more used to dealing with low-level peddlers and thieves and mercenaries, or maybe other people that are of somewhat disrepute. Physical characteristics are things about your character, and again, you can kind of assign things to a random roll of a die if you want. So say maybe hair color, you're not sure what you want to put. You could pick 6 different colors, or maybe bald, different styles, things like that. You would roll the die, pick off of your table, and decide what you want. So we're going to go with, let's see, we're a half-elf, so we're going to go with black hair, fair skin, green eyes, 6 foot 2 inches. Elves usually pretty light. We'll say about 130. And if they become an adult at 20, let's say still fairly on the young side, 38. And the name indicates to me that this is a lady. We'll go with that. And minor shout out here. D&D's done a lot of work towards, or I should say Wizards of the Coast has done a lot of work in their new source material to kind of give more representation to different backgrounds, races, genders, and everything else. So don't think of it as a one or the other kind of thing. In a world with magic and everything else, you can be whatever you want. So be whatever you want. And then notes. These are things like what organizations you might serve or be a part of. What allies you might have. This could be people in your adventuring party if you've met them before your story begins. Your enemies. Maybe as a part of your backstory you have sworn enemies that you have vowed to destroy. Again, all of these provide great foundation for your Dungeon Master to build stories, to kind of fill out the world around you. And then backstory, of course, is your actual backstory. Tell us a little about yourself. Questions that I like to answer here are things like, what was your upbringing like? What kind of family did you have? Did you have brothers and sisters? Did you have both parents? Did you grow up alone, or did you grow up in a commune kind of situation? What is your character's marital status if you're old enough? Are you married? Are you single? Are you divorced? Are you widowed? Etc., etc. Other things that can play into this is if you choose what your character's moral code is. So say I'm a person of honor, there might be a defining moment in your history where you realized this is why I protect people. That was your moment where you had the revelation of I want to protect people, or I want to learn about all of the arcane ways, or I want to start being a historian that travels the world and tells stories of these epic adventures. Those turning point moments can be great opportunities to build some of your backstory a little bit. Same thing with personal beliefs. If perhaps you have a character who believes in innate good in everybody, maybe there's a moment where they witnessed something that inspired in them, this is what I want to be like and put back into the world. By the same token, maybe your character is untrusting of people. Maybe they've been burned in the past. For example, if our character is suspicious of strangers, maybe there was something in their childhood where they were living at home and a mysterious merchant comes to the door trying to sell snake oil to try and convince a parent that this is something that you absolutely need, takes all of your money and runs, and leaves you with this useless relic or item that does nothing. Things like that can provide pivotal moments that kind of shape your story. And the nice things about those is those past experiences will kind of inspire how your character will respond to things during your adventure. Little things like that might create pressure points or something where your character really engages with a specific plot point. How did you become an adventurer is one of my favorites, because most characters in this universe will not be adventurers in their lifetime. What inspired you to leave home or leave the people around you so that you can go on to a greater calling? How does your character get along with others? Are they friendly? Are they standoffish? There are so many things that can really help kind of tweak your relationships with those around you. So there's about 20 questions that I usually save off to the side, and I'll pick ones that feel relevant and I'll start using them to develop a backstory. So we'll build this one together. So we have the character's name. Our character is about 35, 38, somewhere around there that we put. What would someone see at first glance? We've already not written down, what does our character look like? What additional things that maybe you don't see would be of interest? Does your character have any interesting tics of speech, maybe an accent, or a stutter or a lisp, or maybe a certain vocabulary that they use? Certain things to consider there. Where was your character born? Who were they raised by? By who? And then tell us about your parents. So we'll come back to that in a bit here once we flesh out some more stuff. Because I have one more website that I want to show you guys that I use pretty often when building NPCs because it's just fun. This window here is actually one of my favorite features of DnD Beyond because I absolutely hate doing inventory management. So one of the nice things about creating a character using DnD Beyond is you get to choose whether you want equipment or gold. If you click on the gold option, every class has a specific starting gold point, and then you roll some dice to kind of determine how much gold you would have. So we're going to click randomize. I did pretty well. 120 gold pieces to start would give me enough shopping money to basically go around and start building sets of items that I could use. This could be something that you do with your dungeon master at character creation when you're building out your backstory, or maybe it's something you do in your first adventure together. So you leave your temple and you're ready to start this adventuring lifestyle, and all you have are the clothes on your back. So first thing you're going to need is weapons, health potions, adventurers kits, swords, maces, pole arms, yada yada yada. That's really complicated for me because I don't like doing shopping stuff personally, so I'm going to do the choose equipment, which D&D and the Player's Handbook put together specific kits that you can use to build your character out. So we're going to pick between a martial weapon and a shield, or two martial weapons. Since we're going to be like a defender of the people, having a shield is probably a good idea. And then what kind of weapon do we want? Now, because I have some source material enabled, and because I have some other options as well, there's some non-canon things like laser pistols, laser rifles. However, we're going to pick something a little bit more traditional, maybe something kind of cool. I like glaives, they just seem fancy. So we're going to use a glaive. For my armor, it already selects that you get chainmail and a holy symbol. I'm going to say for my paladin, they're going to have an amulet that is something they wear around their neck. And it's going to be purple, and it has a little book in the center to indicate Ioun. Now, as an acolyte, you get other additional things. For example, a holy symbol is gifted to you. So we'll say maybe it's an emblem that's on your armor, and we could define what that might be. And these will all be features that can go in your backstory. And then you also get a certain other things. So maybe you want to swap out that holy symbol for a prayer book or a prayer wheel. And then what else does it come with? So incense, vestments, pouch of 15 gold, set of common clothes. Cool, works for me. Add that starting equipment. Boom, everything's there. So we're going to put on our chainmail to increase our armor class. We're going to equip our shield so we can increase our armor class and not get hit. And we're going to equip that glaive so we have something to hit people with. It's great. You can see how much currency we have on this tab here. And then you can also see things like your encumbrance, how much can you carry, how much can you push and lift. And you can also go through the starting equipment manager again, which we've already done. So we're going to move on, and we've done it. So when I click on View Character Sheet, it will show me my brand new character. So Wisdrael Athena. So on the character sheet, we've got all the things that we're good at over here. We've got our stats all built out and our modifiers to go with it. And then any features that would help you out. So for example, as a half-elf, I have a racial trait that gives me advantage on saving throws against being charmed, and magic can't put me to sleep. So it's a nice little reminder that, oh, I have a bonus to this. When I roll my dice, I'm going to roll twice and take the higher of the two. So we've got more information about our skills. So these are the things that we selected that we're good at. So these little green dots represent our proficiency in them, and as you can see, we get a little bonus higher than what our normal is. So our intelligence modifier is a +1. We get a +2 for being proficient in Arcana. And then over here we can see our attacks. So we have our glaive weapon equipped. We have a +5 to hit. Our damage is 1d10 plus our strength modifier. So we could really wreck somebody's day if we hit them, which is awesome. You can see all of our racial traits, class features, and proficiencies that we've selected. Information about our background, languages, everything else we've got. And then all of our notes over here for our organizations, all the way through our backstory. And one of the other things that I really enjoy is the limited use section here. So it tells you how many times you can do a certain thing that your character has. So, for example, we talked earlier about having Divine Sense where we can detect good or evil. If I am in a circumstance where I want to see if maybe an NPC that I'm talking to has nefarious intent, I might use my Divine Sense to see if their alignment is evil or not. Once I've done that, I can check off the use of it, reminding myself that I have 2 uses left. Same thing with Lay on Hands. How many hit points do I have times 5? Short rest and long rest will allow you to automate the process of, taking a rest. So if you take a short rest, reset your maximum HP changes during this reset, we're not going to do that. But if I wanted to roll hit dice, I could check off the amount of hit dice and take a short rest. So we're going to take a long rest real quick, which would increase my hit points and also return my Divine Sense and Lay on Hands pools. And as you can see, my remaining uses has gone back to normal. Alright. So, what about when we level? We've been on some adventures, we've killed some rats, we've destroyed some vermin around the city, and now it's time for us to move up a level. This is done at your Dungeon Master's discretion. Whether you use milestone campaigns or if you're using experience-based campaigns, when you're ready to level, you'll go ahead and come back to your character sheet, and you'll bump up a level. If you were multi-classing, this is where you could also select another class, which we're not going to do today because we're going to pick one specific thing for now. So at level 2 as a paladin, you get to select your fighting style. This one gives you options depending on what you pick. So protection. When a creature you see attacks a target other than you, you can use your reaction to impose disadvantage by thrusting your shield in front of them. As a paladin who's trying to defend others, this might be a good option. Let's also take a look at defense and see what that does. So while you're gaining armor, you gain a +1 bonus to armor class. So this would just make you, in general, harder to hit. I'm kind of going in the direction where we want to be actively protecting the people around us, so we're going to go with protection. And then because there can be certain changes, it's going to take you through character creation one more time. And it is that quick. So because we have our managed hit dice, I selected at the beginning of our character creation to just use the baseline average of rolling your hit die and your constitution modifier. It automatically increased my health up to 20 from 12, and it will continue to do that every single time that we level up. If you decide for some reason that you want to go back and change core features about your character, always check with your Dungeon Master first, but you can click on the Edit button to go back to the Forge and change information about your character. D&D Beyond is flexible. You could remove an entire class and just completely start over if you wanted to re-roll. That would be something that obviously you'd want to get, you'd want to check with your DM to make sure that's fine. And then, of course, maybe think of a creative story reason where you decided to go completely off book of being a paladin, and now you've decided to turn and maybe go rogue. which could be fun, especially because your stats are already built one way. So again, playing your character non-optimally is traditionally more fun than just being able to steamroll everything in your path. So we're going to do a pretty big jump here. Let's go to level 6 and see how this works. So we now have the option of picking a sacred oath, which allows you to pick an oath that binds you as a paladin forever. Breaking your oath as a paladin can have some pretty severe results, so these are things that you're going to want to commit to. So let's take a look at our options. We've got Conquest, Devotion, Redemption, Oath of the Ancients, Oath of the Crown, Vengeance, and Oath Breaker is the I've decided that I'm not going to play by the rules anymore. But since we're a good paladin, we're going to pick one, do Devotion. So with this, you get Channel Divinity, and also Turn the Unholy, and some ability score improvements at level 4. So we can either choose an ability score improvement, or we can select a feat. Feats are special things about your character that allow you to have bonuses based off of what you select. There's a lot here. So what I usually recommend is, in the character builder, you can actually go and look at all of the backgrounds, classes, and races that you have available to you. And there's official and homebrew options. So if you decide that maybe there's not one that fits in the official source material and you want to make your own, you can totally do that. So let's look for something good for defense. Defensive Duelist could be a good one. Durable is also a good one. So increase your Constitution score by 1, and when you reroll a hit die, the number of hit points you regain is twice your Constitution modifier. That seems pretty good. We're going to go with that. So we're going to go back here, select Durable, and it will automatically update our character sheet with all the new information. And here's our character. Now you might be thinking, what if I'm not playing necessarily at a PC? Oh, you know what? Before we jump into that, because we selected our oath, we received paladin spells, and important to that is the spell slots. So I want to pull up the paladin characters section, because there is some information about spellcasting here that could be useful. So we picked the Oath of Devotion. So these are your tenets. As a paladin, there are certain things that if you do, these will break your oath. So, no lying, no cheating, always be courageous, always have compassion for others, honor, duty, etc., etc. So these are also great storytelling instruments that can drive your character's decision making as you move through the game. Here we go. So, Oath of Devotion spells. These are where you receive your basically boons from your deities, where they start to empower you to do certain things. So at my current level, I've got Protection from Good and Evil, Sanctuary, Lesser Restoration, and Zone of Truth. So there's the 4 spells here. Here's how many times I can cast them. So maybe I've got some questions here, and I want to cast Lesser Restoration on somebody. Say somebody in my party has been deafened. They can't hear anything. And I'm going to lay my hands on them, channel the will of Ioun into them, and cast the Lesser Restoration spell. So if I click on the cast spell button, you can see cast Lesser Restoration, spell slot level 2. And it's been consumed up here. So it tracks all that for me. And then under known spells, I can prepare up to 5 spells per day off of this list, based off of my class. So I can pick anything from here that I would also want to equip for the day. Aid's a good one. Heroism's a good one. Cure wounds is always important. And let's pick Bless, just because it's fun. And now we can see our spells have updated with everything that I've learned for the day. So if I wanted to cast Cure Wounds on somebody that's been injured, I can say if I want to do this at first or second level, it tells me how many dice to roll. Then I hit cast, and it goes ahead and marks it off. So spell casting is super easy to manage in D&D Beyond, which I really appreciate. As a dungeon master, I can go in and view anyone's character sheets, so if they have questions about something, I can go in and see, well, it looks like you've used too many slots for that spell. You can't cast it, but do you want to take a rest? Etc., etc. So that is character creation in a nutshell. Let's go ahead and I'm going to show you guys something that I use, and this one's a bit not safe for work, but I'm entertained. This is a site called whothefuckismydndcharacter.com. This is a randomizer with some great character options that are more story focused than they are stat focused. So I'm going to be an outspoken halfling sorcerer from a sheltered upbringing who hasn't accomplished anything in their short life yet. No. Snobby halfling ranger. Oh, from a small family bakery. I know that Jayaz is just kind of camping the chat, but I'm sure that this would be one of her favorites. Who makes inappropriate jokes at the worst times. So, I mean, aside from the race being wrong, it's pretty much on point. Let's skip over this one, because we've already got a Jayaz. We don't need another one. Plucky half-orc cleric from an unchartable island who loots every kill but leaves enough to pay for their burial. Oh, that's sweet. Methodical gnome barbarian from the Citadel who is haunted by the ghosts of their forefathers. This is a good one. Let's go ahead and actually run with this and see how fast we can make a character off of this. So we're going to go to the character builder. We're going to do a quick build. We're going to pick gnome. Rock gnome, sure. Class, barbarian. Character name. Let's look back at the names for gnomes and see if we can pick one off there. So, races. Gnomes. There we go. Gnome names. So you can pick from here. You can also roll off of the fantasy name generator. Let's go with Gerbo. Gerbo seems fun. Gerbo. Virgo Timbers. The Honey Badger. Because he don't care. So D&D Beyond will create all of our stats for us based off of what we've selected. And we'll see how well it did it. Okay, not too bad. So this actually is pretty decent. We've got a great axe, a hand axe, and a javelin in our inventory. Got a few things we're already good at here. Their stats are not terrible. This could be a character that we definitely play based off of what we received here. And of course we can go in and add and flesh out the details of that character. And we just need to choose our starting equipment, which has already been done, it looks like. We've got our active items, we've got our inventory. So we've got a backpack, bedroll, mess kit, a whole bunch of stuff. This isn't too bad. Alright. So those are some of the basics about character creation. Some things that might help you get started on your next either one-shot campaign or your actual long, drawn-out story campaign. One of the things with making characters in D&D Beyond, or in D&D, is most games where you play, I always spend an obscene amount of time on character creation. With this, I can put the stats down on a certain, on a page super quick, but the part that I enjoy is actually coming up with the story or the universe around that character and tying in some things about them. So it might be where I roll on random tables. There's something in... Actually, this is a good way to break into that. So let's go and look at Xanathar's Guide to Everything. So we were talking about source material and how it kind of changes what you have available to you. One of the things in Xanathar's that I really like is their character creation supplements that talk about, building your character, creating the personality and not so much the rule sets that kind of drive them. So the tables below give you options. So for example, we talked about your parents. If you know who your parents are, if you don't know who your parents are, based off of how common it is in the normal D&D verse. So we rolled 69. Nice. So we would know who our parents are, or were, and then we can decide if I'm a half-elf, half-orc, tiefling, what those parents are. We can then move into things like birthplace, how many siblings we had. So let's roll. So 2. 2 or low? None. So we're going to say, let's go back to Gerbo. And these are all notes that you could take in the meantime, and then we could use these to flesh out a bigger story. So Gerbo has 2 parents, and he knows who they are. He has 0 siblings. Which means we can skip over birth order, family, and friends. So we can see, boom, I was raised by, total of 54, single mother or stepmother. So that kind of changes this section here. So 1 parent, we'll go with birth mother. And then for the absent parent, the father was imprisoned, enslaved, or otherwise taken away. So these are also good story beats for you to kind of look into. So father was imprisoned for tax evasion. Because why not? That's the first thing that comes to my mind. And then their family lifestyle. So what was life like growing up? Rolled a 6. So poor. So use this number as a result modifier to roll on the childhood home table. So because we're poor, we take a penalty on rolling on this table here. So whatever we roll, we're going to subtract 10. So 62 becomes a 52. So we grew up in a small house. And then childhood memories. So these are things that can, again, kind of inspire certain options. So we have a 6 plus our charisma modifier. We're going to close this out, take a look at our charisma. Charisma's a -1. So this is going to be a 5. Most of my childhood alone with no close friends. So go back down to other and add these notes back in. And then personal decisions. So these are items that, while your family circumstances are things that you are born into, you can make decisions as you grow up. So for example, we rolled on the acolyte table before, but let's see if Gerbo has a background. He's a folk hero. Okay, so how did he become a folk hero? Let's take a look. So, Gerbo became a folk hero because they have always stood up for those who are weaker than them. There we go. And we're going to skip down further. So, class training. This is if you've chosen your class how did you come to join that group? So we are a barbarian. We became a barbarian because our devotion to my people lifted me in battle, making me powerful and dangerous. So I became a barbarian because... We'll just literally copy paste. There we go. So these are not necessarily straight backgrounds, but they're enough that you can start drawing from them. So life events by age. We already know how old our character is usually because we've selected it, but we're going to say the character is between 21 and 30 years old. And they have 3 life events that we're going to roll for. So the first one is a 59. Let's see. Spent time working in a job related to your background. Start the game with an extra 2d6 of gold. Not bad. 12 additional. Nice. 13. You gained a good bit of fortune. Roll on the boons table, which is below this. And another 69. You spent your time working... we already did that one, so let's roll for a different one. Already did that one, let's roll for a different one. 42. You made a friend of an adventurer. Use the supplemental tables and work with your DM to add more detail to this friendly character and establish how your friendship began. If I were working with this specific life event, I would actually tie this to another character in the campaign. Maybe the two of you crossed paths before, and you have a friendship or an established working relationship. And that's, you know, you're a small adventuring party that maybe meets a larger one. Alright, so we've already looked down to the secondary tables. We're going to roll for a boon that we received in our adventures. So we found some additional money. So 19 additional gold. So we're going to go back to Gerbo. We're going to edit his money. We have no money to start with, so we've got 12, and then an additional 19. I'm bad at math. So we have 31. Not bad to start. And then what's next? So, these are facts that at a minimum basically tell you what your character is going to be. So with these notes, you could start designing a story around your character, and if your dungeon master has set a specific scene, so for example, if they've told you a little bit about where the adventure is starting, for example, maybe you're going to be in the town of Waterdeep, which is a large trading city that is on the port of an ocean. Perhaps your character has always been a part of the city, or maybe they arrived on a sailing ship. Maybe they're a wandering merchant. If you're a folk hero, that kind of indicates that you come from the city and are a representative of where you were born. So you would build in from the city. Maybe your mother still lives in town and you take care of her. Maybe they're still in that same small house and you want to leave to protect others and raise enough money to help her get into a better home, maybe in a better part of the city. Things like that. All these little story hooks that kind of weave in and can be built upon to build out your character. So that is where we're probably going to end for today. Just some basic story hints and tips on how to build out your background. A couple things that I do want to hopefully leave you with today. The first one being that there is no wrong way to build a character, meaning that you could build your character from the outside in, where you have a description and you want to build from that story into what you want. Or maybe you have an idea of what class you want to play and what race you want to play, but you haven't really fleshed out the story behind them, and that's from the inside out. Both of those are perfectly acceptable. Both of them work in both storytelling and mechanics. Pick what's best for you and move forward. And if you ever get stuck, talk to your DM. We have the leeway to make decisions where maybe you wanted to be a paladin that's not a lawful character. There may be a case where that might work. Don't build your character perfectly. meaning they don't have to be a Mary Sue that has a solution to everything. It's much more fun to have a flawed character, both as a player of that character and also as someone who's a part of the party. It provides depth and gives realism to what you do. And then the last one I would say is don't overdevelop your character. For example, there are going to be opportunities where the Dungeon Master can weave your story into the world. If you have it so defined that there's no opportunity to drop those characters in anywhere or create those plot hooks or stories, you might find yourself not being able to expand on that. Looks like we've got another good background generator that was dropped into the chat by Horizon. Thank you. So let's go ahead and take this. So this is a simple generator that automates the process of rolling on all the character generation tables. So all the stuff that we found in the Player's Handbook, Bolos, and Xanathars. Awesome. So it's a great tool for using the charts that we just saw. So let's do another gnome. We'll do a bard. Let's change it up a little bit. Let's do an I always want to say Arakoa. That's not the right thing. That's World of Warcraft. I'm going to call it that anyway. Who is an entertainer. And the interesting thing about this is it's a bird race that does not make any original sounds. They can only repeat things they've ever heard. So it could be a really fun idea. Nice. So it gives you your overview. Your background as an entertainer. Has all of your flaws, bonds, ideals, and traits. Nice. I like this. Thank you, person whose name I know in real life, but I'm not going to say on stream because I don't know if you want me to say it. But thank you. This is awesome. I'm actually going to save this. Alright. I really want to play with this more now. Let's build one more. Let's do something fun. Let's go back up. We're going to make a new character too. Character builder. Quick build. Bird person. Bard. And I legitimately don't know any of the names for these characters, so let's take a look at what kind of names these guys might use. So, as is much with their speech, their names include clicks, trills, and whistles to the point where other people have difficult times pronouncing them. Good lord. Yeah, this one's gonna be... Sure. That's the name of it. I'm totally going to use this as an NPC at some point. I have no idea what they're going to be, but it's going to be great. Level 1 bard with a lot of dexterity and charisma. Not bad. He's very athletic. And very persuasive. That's really tough for a character that can't make original sounds. I'm on board. I like this. I like that it also does the spell table for you. Because that's the hardest part of character creation for me, is actually building out what spells your character knows. This is awesome. Alright, so we'll build this out a little bit. They're a hopeless romantic. Art should reflect the soul. And they idolize the hero of old tales, so I can pick some kind of inspiration from that as well. A scandal prevents me from ever going home again. That could be fun. Okay. I'm not going to read on stream. That's boring. No one's going to want to see that. But good, this is your life generator. Thank you for sharing that with us. This is awesome. I like this a lot. So yeah, those are my tips for getting started with D&D Beyond. A couple of the randomizers that I use and a brand new one that I'm going to enjoy a lot. If you guys are interested in building out new characters or have questions or need some like crowdsourcing ideas of, you know, maybe you've got a cool concept and you're not sure how to build it out completely, ask us on Twitter, ask other people on Twitter, join us in our Discord, talk about it. If you have a character that you want to play in a game that you're not currently in a game, we've got some aspiring dungeon masters or parties coming together in our Discord as well. I'll go ahead and drop the link in here in a second. And please feel free to join us anytime. And with that said, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Thank you all for tuning in today and going over character creation seminar, a little bit about backstory. I will link some of my favorite questions to ask yourself or tips on story development in the chat as well afterwards. There will be, you know, a couple things from Reddit that I like, a couple character creation guides from Lifehacker, Geek and Sundry, and a few other places. So thanks for tuning in, and I will see you all again in a couple weeks. Bye.